Dear students, I hope all of you will be safe at your places and enjoying the blessings of Ramadan. I welcome you in the lecture number 5 on the subject of Corpus Linguistics. Our today's topic is annotation of corpus. Before going into the detail of today's lesson, let us connect this lesson to our previous knowledge. We defined corpus linguistics and the concept of corpora, then types of corpus. We also discussed the issues that should be considered in the collection of a corpus. Then we moved forward and we discussed what are the tools that are generally used in the analysis of corpus. And in the previous lecture, that is in lecture number 4, we discussed the annotation of corpus. What are the types of these annotations? What are the advantages of these annotations? And also there are certain objections against the annotation of corpus. So now today we will move forward and we will discuss the standard for annotation. It means that there should be a proper standard and it should be observed in the annotation of corpus. And in order to make our corpus researchable and shareable, we have to strictly follow this standard. Then we will also discuss encoding for annotation. We know that certain codes are required for annotation. So we will discuss those codes and how these codes can be encoded in the process of annotation of corpus. We will also try to discuss advantages and disadvantages of annotation. And at the end, I will set an exercise for you, and that exercise you will solve at your places and then upload your answer through LX. Now, we move forward and we come to the point, and that is what should be standard for annotation. Number 1. Annotation should be separable from the raw corpus. We know that the raw corpus is the corpus that is unannotated. And then we annotate that corpus. And the first standard is that the raw corpus can be separated from the annotated corpus. Why? It should be easier for any researcher to separate raw corpus from the annotated one. So we should annotate our corpus in such a way that for any other researcher with whom we share this corpus, this annotated corpus, he or she may be able to separate the raw corpus from the annotated one. Second, all the users of corpus may not want to use the annotated corpus. So if we will follow such a strategy that the annotated corpus can be separated from the raw corpus at any moment and by any researcher, then there would be number of such people, such researchers, who would not want to use the annotated corpus. So it would be easier for them to separate the annotated corpus from the raw corpus and to use that raw corpus for their research. 3. Annotation should not cause the loss of the information in the raw corpus. So sometimes it happens that when we annotate a corpus, some of the information that we have collected in the raw corpus is lost, and that is not something that goes into our advantage. So annotation should be of such nature that it should not cause the loss of the information in the raw corpus. We know that corpus collection is a laborious process. It is not an easy process. So as soon as we annotate our corpus, some of the information that we have gathered and collected with a great amount of labor, time, money, that is lost. So our annotation should not cause such kind of loss. The second standard that we should try to maintain is the proper documentation about corpus and constituent texts. So there should be proper documentation. Documentation means that if some other researcher uses our corpus, or some other person who wants to analyze this corpus, he should have proper knowledge through that documentation. What are the texts that constitute this corpus? And there are certain other information that we always keep at the start of our corpus. So we should properly document all this information about corpus as well as about the texts that have been collected in the corpus. Proper and detailed documentation about annotation. It means that we have to keep a standard. How we can keep this standard? If we will properly document the information about the corpus. Similarly, we should make this documentation with a great amount of detail so that the other person may not find any difficulty to understand the annotation. How, where, when, and by whom the annotation was carried out. So annotation must give this knowledge at the outset, at the very beginning, how that annotation has been carried out, where it has been carried out, and when it was carried out. Similarly, who was the person who was involved in the process of annotation. Information about the annotation scheme. What is annotation scheme? Linguistic terminology and analysis. That should also be given in the process of annotation, and it should be given at the very outset, at the very start, so that the other person may understand the linguistic terminology that is being used in the annotation, as well as how the analysis has been made. This information should be given, and this information can be given only if we have a scheme for annotation. 3. Information about the coding scheme. What is coding scheme? Symbolic convention about the corpus. For example, if we are writing in our annotation scheme underscore, we should give the detail, we should give the information where we are using this symbol of underscore, why we are using this symbol of underscore, and for what purpose, what it indicates, what this symbol indicates. So different symbols would indicate different functions. We should give information about this coding scheme at the very outset. Then, our annotation must give maximum information about the quality of an annotation. So we know that quality-wise, different annotations will have different standards. And our annotation should give information how much it is dependable, whether it is dependable 80%, 90%, 95%. We must give this information at the very outset. So this is the proper documentation about corpus and its constituent texts. Now, the third standard that we must apply during the process of annotation is linguistically consensual annotation. We should use such linguistic symbols upon which there is consensus in the community of linguistics. In the community of linguists, if they agree upon some symbol, it means that these symbols will be understood by maximum people. And we should use such kind of annotation which is mostly agreed upon. Controversial symbols. We should try to avoid controversial symbols because there are some symbols upon which the linguistic community does not agree. And if we are going to use these kind of symbols, there would be controversy about it and our corpus would lose its value. So we should try to avoid such kind of controversial symbols. Annotation follows a system of classification. So we are going to discuss these systems of classification later on, but at the present we should understand that we should follow only one system of classification while annotating our corpus. If we are mixing up different systems of classification, it is going to create confusion among the users of that corpus. So always try to follow a single system of classification. And we must keep in mind, there is no single standard system for annotation. It means that there are so many systems of classification and annotation working side by side, working parallel to each other. Now it depends upon the person who is annotating the corpus to pick such kind of symbols out of these systems which are agreed upon, which are non-controversial. Minimum standard observable on agreed classes. There are certain classes which are agreed in the community of linguistics. So we should try to observe minimum standard upon those classes which are agreed upon. Disagreement on less clear classes. Then when we move forward, for example, in the parts of speech, the parts of speech is a kind of class which is more or less agreed upon. The symbols for parts of speech are mostly agreed upon. But when we go into the detail of parts of speech, then there are certain classes which are not agreed upon and where the linguists disagree. So we should make it clear that these are the less clear classes and there is disagreement on these classes. Whereas on the agreed classes, we should observe a standard, minimum standard. Annotation scheme can be based on consensual classes. Once again, we are focusing our attention to this point and we are re-emphasizing this point that we should try to follow such kind of annotation scheme that is based on consensus. Majority of the people should agree on those classes. Annotation scheme should be clear about less clear class. Again, this is something repetition of the fact, repetition of the point, that if there are certain classes which are less clear, then our annotation scheme should at least point out that these are the classes which are less clear and there is disagreement on these classes. Following a certain theory for annotation makes the corpus less useful, less shareable. I have already pointed out that there are a number of systems of classification which are working side by side, which are running parallel to each other. The best annotation scheme would be of such nature that picks the most agreed upon symbols from these classes and use it in the process of annotation. And if we follow only one theory for annotation, it would make our corpus, it would make at least the annotation of our corpus controversial. And then there would be controversy about the annotation scheme, then it would become less useful and less shareable for other researchers, because the controversy about the annotation has been generated and there would be people who would not like to use this corpus or share this corpus. So it would make our corpus less useful and less shareable if we just blindly follow a single theory for annotation. The fourth standard that we must follow, the de facto standard. What is the de facto standard? Annotation should follow the standard that has already been in practice. This is very important, very significant point about the annotation. Because if you use such kind of standard and such kind of symbolic pattern, symbolic scheme in your annotation that has already been followed and practiced, then naturally your corpus with such kind of annotation would become attractive for the other researchers. If you are trying to use some new standard, some new annotation system, then naturally the people would be hesitant about that standard, that scheme, and they would be hesitant in using your corpus. More and more researchers would accept such a practice if you are using the standard that has already been in vogue, in fashion, in practice. Then more and more researchers would accept such a practice. Annotation scheme may depend upon the nature of research and study. That is also very important. We would follow such kind of annotation scheme that may fulfill the objective of our study, the objective of our research. And annotation scheme can be changed according to the nature of our study. New research may set new standard of annotation scheme. If there has been a research on the corpus once and a new research on the same corpus has been started, then this new research would naturally set a new standard of annotation scheme for the same corpus. However, new annotation scheme should respect the outcomes of the previous schemes. This is, we know, one of the ethics of research, that the new research would always respect the outcomes of the previous researches. Similarly, if we are adopting a new annotation scheme for our corpus, still we should give respect to the outcomes of the previous schemes. We cannot disregard them blindly. They have made their contribution, so we must show respect to the outcomes of the previous schemes. Now, these were the 4 points that we should keep in mind, and these act as a standard for annotation. Now, the encoding of annotation. We know that we use different codes for annotation. What are the basic requirements for encoding annotation? Now, encoding annotations are the different symbols that represent different classes in the corpus. We are going to take an example, and that would make this concept more clear. Now, the basic requirements for encoding annotations are unambiguous, non-confusing. These symbols should not confuse anybody. Then, these should be brief. These should not be verbose. Third, these should be clear. So there should be no ambiguity in these symbols. These should be brief and these should be clear. These are the basic requirements for encoding annotation. Because if our symbols would be brief, clear, and non-confusing, then naturally it would be easier for the researchers to use our corpus. Example, in parts of speech tagging, POS tagging of corpus, the category of singular pronoun, a proper noun. Now, here we are going to annotate a singular proper noun. What would be the symbols that we are going to use? For example, there is a name, a proper noun in our corpus, and that is Catherine. So how our corpus would show this proper noun? Catherine underscore NP1. This is what we would see in our corpus when we would open our corpus. Then there is a word Catherine. It is, we know, a proper noun. Then in our corpus we would see after Catherine there would be symbol underscore NP1. Now here, what does these symbols convey? For what these symbols stand for? Underscore, relationship of word to the symbol. So here underscore is indicating the relationship of Catherine with the symbols, that is NP1, and N is indicating noun, P stands for proper, and 1 stands for singular. So you can see that we are using symbols in order to indicate the class of a word, and the class was singular proper noun. Underscore indicates the relationship of Catherine to the symbols, and those symbols are NP1. N stands for noun, P for proper, and 1 for singular. This simple encoding has been replaced by the complex coding system. So that was very simple kind of scheme that we have seen in the last example, NP1, which is indicating singular proper noun. But with the passage of time, we would see that this simple encoding system has been replaced by the complex coding systems. In order to standardize every phenomenon in corpora, including annotation, standard markup languages have been used. Now these are the languages of the machine, that is computer. And with the passage of time, what we have done in order to standardize so that everybody could understand every phenomena in corpora, whether it is the phenomena of parts of speech or something else. These have been linked now with the standard markup languages, and these languages are HTML, that is Standard Generalized Markup Language, HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, and XML, that is Extensible Markup Language. Now, what are the advantages of linking our annotation scheme to these markup languages? Advantages are that now it is easier to interchange the documents. The people, the researchers who are using corpora, it has become easier for them to interchange the documents through these languages. Then, another contribution of these languages is efficient parse and validation. So now we can easily, through these languages, we can parse, means divide, for example, sentences into clauses and phrases. And the third advantage is benefit of new developments in these languages. We know that there has been a lot of research in these languages, and these languages are developing very fast. So naturally, with the development in these languages, our annotation system is also getting the benefit. But there are certain disadvantages as well. These are very complex and verbose, full of words. And what we have taken the example, that is MP1. That was very simple way of expressing or annotating a proper noun. But now, when we have connected our corpora with these languages, our annotation system has become complex and full of words. Also, it requires high resolution standard of validation not found in corpora, because these are the languages which possess high resolution standard, and corpora does not compete with that standard. We have now taken an example in which the same word Catherine has been expressed in these high markup languages. You can see example. W type means word type is equal to, then inverted commas, MP1, then Catherine, then slash, then word. So the same simple kind of annotation scheme has been replaced by this very complex and verbose, although there are advantages of it that we have discussed above. But still, there are certain disadvantages because this classification or this annotation system is complex as well as verbose. Now we come to the end of our lecture, and as usual I am going to set an exercise for you. What are the basic standards for the annotation of a corpus? What are the basic standards for the annotation of a corpus? You will write an answer of this question and then upload your assignment through LMS. I want to repeat, only those assignments would be acceptable that we would receive through LMS. No other via would be acceptable. That's all from my side for today. Stay safe, stay blessed.